Matthew chapter 12. Gospel according to Matthew chapter 12. These verses were read into your hearing earlier in these services. I want to read them again to simply highlight and emphasize the text out of which we are attempting to preach on this day. Matthew chapter 12. I'm going to read verses 38, 39, and 40 one more time to your hearing. Matthew chapter 12, verses 38, 39, and 40. If you have it, say amen. Matthew chapter 12, beginning at verse 38, we find these words. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees answered, saying, Teacher, we want to see a sign from you. But he answered and said to them, An evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign shall be given to them except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. For as Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights, so shall the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. Let me take this text and preach from this thought: when the burial becomes the blessing. Amen. When the burial becomes the blessing. Well, beloved, here we are once again gathered in God's house on another Easter Sunday morning that both commemorates and celebrates the delivering of the greatest news of the greatest event ever recorded or reported in the history of the world. And I know that it was good news for you parents on the day when you heard the doctor declare that you had birthed a beautiful baby boy or a gorgeous baby girl. But the news that we commemorate and celebrate on this day is much greater news than that. I know that it was good news for you when you heard that you have been accepted into the school of your dreams, or that you were finishing the school and getting your degree. I know that it was good news for you when the realtor said that you were approved for the home, or you got the bank to say yes and give you financing for your new car. But believe me, my friends, that the news that we commemorate and celebrate on this day is even greater than that. I know that for many of us, we shouted and celebrated back in November of 2008 when we heard the good news that a black man, a real black man from the south side of Chicago, was going to be in the White House as the newly elected president of the United States. But the news that we celebrate today is even greater news than the news of a black man in the White House. For again, the news that we celebrate and commemorate on this day is the greatest news ever reported or recorded in the history of the world. It is news that gives us hope and lets us know that we have some help. It is news that brings us joy and lets us know that we've been justified. It is news that brings us peace and lets us know that we have power. Today, we don't just celebrate good news, but we celebrate some great news. We celebrate the greatest news that's ever been told, that Jesus Christ is not in the grave where his haters had placed him, but he has risen like he said that he would. That the Christ who was crucified on Friday turned around and got up on Sunday. That is great news. That sin could not stop him. The grave lost its grip on him. That death could not deny him. That betrayal could not break him. That the cross couldn't cripple him, and the devil could not defeat him. That is not just good news, but the news of Easter Sunday morning is some great news. And somebody who is glad about the great news ought to give God some praise. This news is great news for somebody who has been knocked down, pulled down, pushed down, and dragged down. The news of Easter Sunday morning is great news for somebody who has been beaten, battered, bruised, broken, and betrayed. This news is great news for somebody who has been lied on to your face and stabbed in your back. For somebody who is dealing with what looks like a defeat. For somebody whose life looks like it's been destroyed, decimated, devastated, and has been left for dead. That before you turn over and get comfortable in the grave that your enemies dug for you, before you decide to defer to defeat, before you get comfortable in the cave of life that currently is confining you, look out, because God can turn your burial into your blessing. I know that the issues and the circumstances of life have knocked you down. I know that you have enemies and obstacles conspiring to keep you down. I know that sin and sickness, lack of faith and lack of finances, overwhelming guilt and oppressive governments may weigh you down. But the good news of Easter morning, and every Sunday morning for that matter, is that even if you find yourself buried under a mountain of problems, buried under a mountain of pain, buried under a mountain of lies, a mountain of death, it does not matter how deep you may be buried. It doesn't matter the issue or the circumstance that has you buried. The power of God is able to take your burial and transform it into a blessing. That's what happened to Jesus the Christ